I'm not really looking forward to this video. So remember a while back when I made that video about how I'm so wonderful because I always follow my personal minimums? This one is not that video. It was the day before my youngest daughter's birthday, so I decided to go take her up for a little birthday flight.
Get to go on a birthday flight. Does that sound good?
Yeah, but it's not even my birthday.
I know. This is an early birthday present because your birthday is tomorrow.
And as always, first thing I do is I check the weather.
Starbase Zulu 1550 Zulu, wind 260 at 18.
Okay, so that means the wind is coming from 260 degrees at 18 knots. The runway is at about 240 degrees, so that means that there's a crosswind component of about 6 knots.
My personal minimums, or the limits I've set for myself, say the wind has to be less than 20 knots and less than 10 knot of crosswind component. So far I'm good on both counts.
Right now, we're taxiing.
That's right. Fox Ground, Cherokee 903 Whiskey Papa is ready for takeoff at 24.
Cherokee 903 Whiskey Papa, Fox Tower, wind 270 at 24, runway 24, cleared for takeoff.
Now they're saying 270 at 24 knots. That's 4 knots over my maximum wind limits. And that makes the crosswind about 12 knots, which is over my 10 knot crosswind limit. So the next radio call I should have made should have been something like Fox Tower, Cherokee 3 Whiskey Papa. The winds are a little too high for me. Request or cancel landing. Sorry, cancel takeoff intentions. Taxi back to the hangars. But that's not what I said.
Clear for takeoff, runway 24, Cherokee 3 Whiskey Papa.
The takeoff itself was actually pretty good. I held in my crosswind controls like you're supposed to. I drifted a little bit downwind on takeoff, but I corrected it. And I pretty much did everything you're supposed to do, except for the, don't take off beyond your minimums part. My original plans were to do some touch and go, so went around the pattern to do one.
Cherokee 3 Whiskey Papa, wind 28020, runway 24, clear to land.
28020, runway 24, cleared to land, touch and go, 3 Whiskey Papa. And after the touch and go, we'll go ahead and depart to the west.
Okay, this time I know I heard it correctly because I repeated it back. By the way, you don't have to repeat back the winds, but in this case I did, just kind of for my own sake, to take a moment to parse what they said and make sure I understood it and make sure that I heard them right. So now it's 20 knots, which is right on my minimums, and the crosswind component was 12 knots, but that's close enough that there's no way I could have really calculated that in my head, but I certainly knew it was going to be close to my minimums. After that, I requested to depart the pattern because I knew the winds were predicted to calm down a little bit, so I thought maybe I'll just go fly around, do a little bit of sightseeing, and then hopefully it'll be a little bit calmer when I come back to land.
We're getting ready to land now. And then we're going to go fly out and see the poppies.
Poppies?
Yeah,
What's a poppy?
the orange flowers.
Best day ever.
Best day ever.
Because we get to see the poppies.
approach and downwind.
It was actually fairly decent considering that it was higher winds than I'm used to.
Landed yet?
Yeah, we just landed. Now we're going to take off again.
After that, it was a pretty flight, though kind of bumpy. We've been getting a lot of rain lately, so it's fun to go see the desert. So much greener than normal, and to see all the orange patches of California poppies that our area is known for. But let's get back to why I decided to take off in the first place. I think there are a few reasons why I took off anyway. Number one, I wasn't actually positive that I heard it right. Ali was talking at the same time, and I wasn't positive about what he said. But I think, honestly, I was pretty sure I was over the 20 knot limit, and I was sort of just lying to myself. And I certainly didn't do the math to figure out that it was over my crosswind limits. Number two, I have prepared myself for withstanding the pressure to complete a trip for a lot of reasons. For example, I've thought about preparing myself for when a passenger needs to be somewhere at a certain time. I make sure I always have a backup plan, or find out what will happen if you don't make it, and if it's too much pressure, just don't plan on flying at all. But I had never really thought about this different kind of pressure where it had nothing to do with me needing to be flying, but it was just the fact that I was already there. I was rolling out to take off when they told me the updated wind. That's a temptation that I hadn't really immunized myself against. And the third reason was that I remembered what happened the last time I canceled a flight with my daughter. Hey, don't kick me. Hey, Allie. So I think what concerns me even more than, the fact that I did something that potentially could have been dangerous is just the fact that I value integrity very highly, and this is something I committed to do. And even though everything was fine, I didn't feel good about the fact that I had a standard that I set for myself and I didn't keep up with it. I think that's important in all of the whatever codes you live by in your life, whether it's an ethical code, a safety code, a health code, a work quality code, a religious code, a moral code, whatever codes and standards you set for yourself, I think it's really important to follow them. And I thought that I was pretty good at when I set a line, I thought I was pretty good at following it, and it's concerning to me to see myself fail in this and lose some of that integrity that I value.
Well, anyway, it was pretty bumpy, and there were some clouds coming in, and my daughter wasn't having fun anymore, so it only took a few minutes before we decided to head back to land.
Foxtower Formation Alpha 1650 Zulu, wind 270 gust 30, weather's better than 5,000.
Okay, so 20 knots is right on my limit. 30 degrees off runway heading makes it a 10 knot crosswind, so also right on my limit. Gust factor is 10 knots, also right on my limit. So technically I was within my minimums, but very much on the border.
Cherokee 3 Whiskey Papa, wind 270 at 24, runway 24, clear to land.
Clear to land, runway 24, Cherokee 3 Whiskey Papa.
You can see a little grimace there when he said 24 knots, because that's over my limit. And also, that's a crosswind of 12 knots, which is over my limit again, though that's too close for me to calculate in my head while I was flying. I actually don't feel guilty about landing in over my minimums, though. I've defined my minimums as what I'm willing to take off in, knowing that the weather could get worse afterward. In terms of what I'll land in, it's sort of just a judgment call based on the specific situation. In this particular case, I knew that all of the other nearby airports were probably even windier, so I decided that I'd attempt to land keeping my speed up a little higher than normal and being really ready to go around at any moment. And if it didn't look good, I'd just go around and then I'd start thinking about other airports. But this was actually one of my better crosswind approaches. With the camera mount in the center, you can see that the divide in the center of the windscreen is lining up with the runway pretty well, so I'm actually pretty happy with this approach. The touchdown itself was a little hard, probably due to me coming in a little faster than I'm used to, but we're fine and we didn't break the airplane. So in a sense, the flight was successful. I mean, we saw the poppies, we didn't break the plane, we didn't die, I got some good crosswind experience. So I could have looked at this flight and said, hey, I guess breaking personal minimums isn't really a big deal. But that's not how I feel about it. If I don't stick to my rules, one of these times I may not land safely, and I'll only have myself to blame. Also, usually after a flight, I chat with all my pilot friends and I'm all happy, and that's not how I felt this time. I don't like the way I felt about that flight. I don't like the way I feel about that flight now, and I don't want to feel that way about other flights. Now, because the landing went pretty well, I am going to increase my minimums a little bit due to this. I'm not going to increase them all the way up to what I was actually flying in though, because while I did land okay, it was definitely one of those landings where I was happy to be on the ground afterwards. And I just want to feel like I'm confident and safe in every landing. And I'm also coming away with this with a greater commitment to stick to my minimums, because I want to end my flight feeling good about it, not like a dangerous pilot with no integrity.